The Your Mark on the World show is made possible by our sponsors, including Clean Energy Advisors.
Welcome to Your Mark on the World, bringing you another changemaker with champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and we're producing this episode for GoodCrowd.info, and I'm excited that we have with us today Salvador Briggman, who is the CEO and founder of CrowdCrux. Salvador, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Been watching your work from afar. Amazing job. I might be a little bit underdressed for this interview, but I'm going to bring the goods, going to share all of the great stuff about nonprofit crowdfunding, and also give some insight on just my own thoughts with marketing.
Great, great. Well, Salvador, what first brought you to or intrigued you with, how did you get started in crowdfunding?
It wasn't really planned. It was sort of like I was in college and I had to do an econ thesis, like a mini one. And it was like this dreaded topic. I didn't want to do any of these boring topics. And I saw the Jobs Act was this whole new thing in the news, and it got me like really excited. And I was trying to do it on like equity crowdfunding, that kind of stuff, but there wasn't that much data out there at the time. So I started to focus way more on Kickstarter and looking at the variables that affect success on Kickstarter, and specifically between all the different categories. So like the dance category versus theater versus publishing, the variables that affect success are going to be very different in a theater project versus a technology or design project. And so that was sort of what got me into it. And I was just kind of sharing stuff on my blog. People started to read it. They started to like it. And it kind of progressed from there, all the different things like the podcast, YouTube, etc.
Excellent. So recently you wrote a book about nonprofit crowdfunding. What's it called? How do people find it?
It's called Nonprofit Crowdfunding Explained. So I wrote this Amazon book. It's on Amazon last year. So it's an ebook. You can also get the physical copy. And then recently I went through the very painstaking experience of creating an audiobook on Audible. So it took a while because obviously every time you mess up, you have to make sure that the audio is pasted together just really well. It's just beautiful sounding. So it took a while to get together, but people have really seemed to like it so far.
Yeah, people love audiobooks, don't they? That just so very wise strategy there. So let's talk about some of the insights from your nonprofit crowdfunding book. What do you think are what's the most important thing someone needs to know about nonprofit crowdfunding?
I think the biggest thing is it's sort of been the culmination of a few different factors, whether it's smartphones and more people adopting smartphones, having access to the internet, etc. The fact that people are far more willing, even in older generations, to be on Facebook and to use social media sites for their news and go there for entertainment. And I think that all these things have sort of culminated along with online video to make crowdfunding a really compelling thing. And many nonprofits out there, they're kind of stuck in like the tried and true ways that have worked in the last like 30 years to get donors and to get funding, whether it's like physical mail. Like, I don't know about you, like I obviously, don't really check physical mail very often or read the things that I get. Could be even like television ads. People are just tuning out of these things. But what a few nonprofits have discovered, and they're like absolutely, I think, just blowing away in terms of the amount of, I guess, the amount of impact that a small organization can have is they've discovered that you can use crowdfunding to get the word out there about a cause and to affect donors and to share your story. And it's kind of weird because you can have strangers online actually empathize with what it is that you're doing because of your story. And you can have them feel like they almost have the sense that they know who you are and the values of your nonprofit because of all these different assets that go into a crowdfunding campaign. So I just think it's a really exciting time to be alive. And I think it's the easiest time to actually get funding for nonprofits that unfortunately it's a really cash-strapped time. Grants are drying up. It's hard. And I just wanted to sort of alleviate that pain point.
Yeah. So what are some of the keys? So I'm a nonprofit. I'm out there. I want to raise money.
Yeah.
How do I start? How do I focus my energy to be as productive as possible on a crowdfunding campaign?
So basically, there are two types of crowdfunding. There's peer-to-peer fundraising and there's traditional crowdfunding. Peer-to-peer fundraising, you can think of something like a Relay for Life event. And your role as a nonprofit is basically to be an educator and a leader. And basically what's happening is you're having this event and your core donors are going out there and they're soliciting donations from their friends and their family. And it's your job to educate them. What kind of social media messages should they share? What should they say to their friend? You know, how they're going to explain this to people. And then they're raising money on your behalf. And that's called peer-to-peer fundraising. And then there's sort of traditional crowdfunding. Traditional crowdfunding is you have a campaign, you have a set duration which you're raising money, you have a fundraising goal, and your job as the nonprofit is to go out there and market it and to explain to people why this cause is noteworthy, where the money is going to. So with peer-to-peer fundraising, you're an educator and a leader of these core donors. With traditional crowdfunding, you're doing all the marketing, you're getting all the press, you're pushing it out there. So there's sort of benefits and drawbacks to both of them. That's sort of where you start.
Yeah. I've sure seen the peer-to-peer model work most effectively. Because it's hard for an organization to raise a lot of money through crowdfunding, in my experience. But if you can activate dozens, hundreds, or thousands of advocates on your behalf, things can go crazy. Like we saw with the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge a couple of years ago, right?
That was crazy.
It went nuts, but that was all peer-to-peer. And anyway, so what are some of the key lessons that you take away from what you've been observing about nonprofit crowdfunding?
I think the other thing I would say is that one of the great things about peer-to-peer fundraising is it really engages those core donors even more because they're way more invested in what it is you're doing. They have to explain it and teach it to people. And you and I both know when you're teaching something, you have to understand it really well. It actually strengthens the relationship there. But aside from that, I think that if you are doing a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign, the main thing that I would take away as a nonprofit is that since you are leading these people and you're giving them the tools to go out there and raise money from the network, you can't leave anything to chance. You almost have to do it all for them in terms of putting together posters that they can put up in their town, putting together emails that they can send their friends or email templates, social media posts with interesting graphics or a video, etc. You have to put together a lot of these core materials. And the other thing I would say is one of the big trends we've seen more recently is text to donate. That's something that's been becoming a lot larger, where traditionally, if you're trying to get the word out to your core donors, you might cultivate an email list. You might be communicating with them that way. You might have like a small event where you're educating people. Text to donate is another trend I've been watching that's seen a lot of traction, particularly with in-person events. So that's something I think that in the future is a lot more nonprofits are going to do. And it's also really powerful. You know, it's another way to get people to take action here. The other thing I would say is this is sort of all about finding an excuse to share your story. And we tend to do this on message sites like Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, etc. But essentially what you're doing as a nonprofit is you're trying to put out content that's going to resonate with these people that are your core donors and also people that are interested in the cause. So it doesn't necessarily be statistics or anything like that, but an engaging video that you shot, on your smartphone of the event that you can share with people, or you're interviewing someone who your organization is helping, and that short, like 2-minute video you're sharing on Facebook. Those are amazing things that you can do to become a little bit of like your own media company and start to get people interested in what it is you're doing. I mean, it's really a crowded world, so you have to do that.
Yeah, it's really important. So as you've been looking at this, what are some examples of the nonprofit crowdfunding campaigns that you've seen that have been remarkably successful, great lessons to take away?
One I had on my podcast, they used CauseVox's platform. That's a peer-to-peer fundraising site. And these guys, they were raising money for, I believe it was MMORE, which is, if I get it right, multiple myeloma opportunities for research, or basically research related. And these guys did just an amazing job. They raised like 60 grand. The way they were able to do that is they just got a very small group of very passionate advocates. And they did exactly what I said. They put together PDFs. They put together step-by-step templates that people could use. And because they had this core group, they were able to utilize sort of their labor and their legwork to get people interested in the cause. And you know that if a friend comes to you and is sharing a story with you or talking with you about something that is meaningful to them, you're more likely to give money than if some like faceless organization is. So I think that was a really big component in their campaign. And also they just had a tremendously compelling story. You know, the person who founded the organization, this is something that afflicted their family. And they were able to sort of, I guess, empathize with other people that were also afflicted by that horrible disease. And those emotions kind of like translated across the web because of the story. So that was another, I think, really big factor with that one.
Yeah, that's great. Great tips, great insights. Well, Salvador, you know, you are really a remarkable guy. You've been very successful, and I thank you for that. But who do you look up to as a role model? Who inspires you?
Who inspires me? Well, one of the things I've sort of realized in the past few years is I sort of have business role models and then I have like life role models, because you know if you have a business role model, usually they're spending lots and lots of time on their business, and it could be to the expense of other things in their life. It's hard to be successful in multiple areas, you know. So I've always looked up to people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, just because like he can master many different disciplines. And I think I'm sort of the same way in that, like, I like nonprofit crowdfunding, I like Kickstarter, real estate, like all these different things interest me. More recently, I mean, Elon Musk in the entrepreneurial space is amazing. He's an inspiration to everyone. In the nonprofit space, I had a boss that I worked for when I was in undergrad. And she was a very difficult boss, but she also commanded a lot of respect. And basically the nonprofit, they helped women entrepreneurs get funding from venture capitalists. And it was a nonprofit organization. They sort of did this as a labor of love. And it was just incredible to see all these women entrepreneurs get together and have their lives changed by this leader who is kind of like a little bit of like a Steve Jobs kind of like brash in some ways, but she got the work done. And I always found that to be really inspiring. And it kind of made me think, what if we applied some of the more for-profit models to not-for-profit fundraising? Like, what if we take the same mindset of taking it very seriously and having the best technology and really treating it like a venture? I think that's when great things can happen. And she taught me that lesson.
Oh, that's great. Why did you decide to get into this crowdfunding space? I mean, you've really been making a difference here. Why was it so important for you to do that?
Well, part of it, I think, is just my own desire to understand it. Like, I didn't really ever think that blogging could lead to a lot of different things. I was kind of doing it as more of a hobby. So it was kind of naivete in that way. And with my podcast, you know, it's now over 150 episodes. My first 20 episodes, after I completed those, I was like, wow, this really sucks. I have to redeem myself and keep going. Otherwise, I'm just not going to be able to live with myself. So then I get to episode 50. I'm like, wow, this is actually getting good. Like, I can't live with myself if I gave up on this.
Yeah.
Just always find small ways to keep going with it. And it's just curiosity also, you know.
Fantastic. Well, Salvador, what is your superpower?
My superpower?
Yes.
I'm not sure. I think, you know, I've always been sort of a teacher in some ways. I've always loved to learn things and teach them. I think recently, maybe the last 2 years, one of my superpowers has been understanding emotions and how that plays into marketing and just my own emotions in general. You know, as I become older, as I grow and mature and such, my work has taken a little bit of a change in that I focus a lot more on how to generate emotions in your marketing and also with your fundraising. How do you make it so that people trust you? How do you make it so that people like you? How do you make it so that they feel like you're an actual individual person and not just this big company or this big organization just looking for something. The only way that we can stand out in a very, very crowded world is to cause an emotional impact in someone else. So that's what I've been studying, I think, in the last 1 to 2 years, which is hopefully, going to continue and maybe develop into a superpower.
Oh, fantastic. Well, you are super powerful. So I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Now, Salvador, before you go, tell us how people can learn more about your work, especially your nonprofit crowdfunding book, and find out how people can connect with you personally.
Sure, I'd love to. And also just one other thing I was just going to remember here. A lot of these principles that we're talking about, these psychological principles, whether it's creating urgency so that you're actually someone on a donor's radar, that you go from number 10 to number top 3 of the things that they should do. A lot of the things like creating a small commitment so that people buy more into your nonprofit. These are really powerful things that our marketers do all the time, but they aren't done as much in the nonprofit fundraising arena. And that's sort of one of the reasons why I did the audiobook Nonprofit Crowdfunding Explained. And if people want to check it out, it's at crowdcrux.com/nonprofit audio, or the physical book is at crowdcrux.com/nonprofit. But the reason was I wanted to sort of arm these nonprofits with the same tools that for-profit companies use to sell lots and lots of products.
Yeah.
So that's sort of been my whole goal here. But people can go to those 2 links if they want to check out my work related to nonprofits.
Fantastic. Well, Salvador, thank you very much for being with us today, and we wish you every success in sharing that book far and wide, making a difference for nonprofits.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All righty. Let's do some good. Clean Energy Advisors creates investment opportunities in the renewable energy sector that provide clients with predictable income, preservation of capital, and positive impact. Clean Energy Advisors is committed to providing clients with investment opportunities with both market rates of return and measurable impact.
Thank you for listening. This podcast was recorded via Google Hangouts on Air and is available at youtube.com/Devin Thorpe. Subscribe to this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes by searching for Your Mark on the World. Every weekday, Devin hosts a CEO, celebrity, entrepreneur, or other changemaker here on the Your Mark on the World show to inspire and prepare you to make your mark. Devin is a champion of social good, writing about, advocating for, and advising people who are doing good. He is a Forbes contributor who is a recognized thought leader in social entrepreneurship, impact investing, and crowdfunding. To book Devin as a speaker, visit devinthorpe.com. Learn more about Devin's work at yourmarkontheworld.com.